Hi everybody, welcome back to Read and Reread. My name is Angelia and today I'm here with Friday Reads. This might end up posting a little late in the day because I got a late start today. I didn't feel real great last night, so I didn't sleep that well and got a late start. So, sometimes you're surprised when you look back and you read a lot more than you thought, but then other times you look back and you're like, well, how did I only finish this one book? So I had one of those weeks. I read one book and I'm about 2/3 of the way through another one. So I'll talk about those in just a minute. First, we go over some events in the week. We went to see the theater version of A Christmas Carol last Saturday, and it was really, really good. This was a community theater. It's a musical version, and I'm not like a giant, musicals fan, but this was really fun. The scene stealer was Jacob Marley. The way that the actor interpreted his role was particularly entertaining. And when he came out, the theater was just like, whoa, because, okay, just imagine if Meatloaf put on a Beetlejuice costume and then did a super energetic version of Jacob Marley with the chains and the traditional dialogue, but just like crazy hair, crazy makeup, and he just burst in and freaked Scrooge out, and he kind of stole the day. I'm always really impressed about how much time and effort people have to put into these productions when it is not their full-time job. They're not professional actors. Just the costumes and the sets and all the dance scenes and everything. So it was very fun. And also another thing that kind of made me laugh was right at the very end, they did this like burst of fake snow, and we're so starved for like winter themes down in South Texas that this plastic snow comes raining down, and everyone in the audience is like, oh. So, yes, there's plastic in my hair. It's so, seasonal. So anyway, that was a good time. Now let's talk about television. We did finish Black Spot finally, and Netflix pulled one of its stunts where it did not renew the show, and the show was not finished. So there's 2 seasons of it. I'm not going to recommend it because it leaves you hanging. Netflix is the Patrick Rothfuss of television channels, always just cutting things off before the conclusion and failing to deliver. So I kind of suspected that was going to happen as it got towards the last couple episodes and there was just too many strands hanging out there. And so clearly they meant to go into a 3rd season, but they did not get that opportunity. So, meh. Then we are continuing with Ted Lasso, which we're still enjoying a lot. And then also we started watching Severance, which is also on Apple TV. And this is a weird one. It is science fiction, and it is about a company where if you work in certain departments of this company, you agree to a procedure where your brain is altered to where your work life and your home life, dropping things, your work life and your home life are separated in your consciousness. So when you are at work, you have your work identity and you know your friends at work and you see them each day, but you don't know anything about what they call your outie, like who you are out in the world. Do you have a family? What is your backstory? You don't know anything about that. And when you are at home, once you leave a certain floor of the building, your real life demeanor comes back to you, and you don't really know what you do at work. You know enough that you know you work there, and you know that you had this procedure, but you don't know what you do all day at work. And so it kind of begins with this character, Mark, who's played by Adam Scott, and we kind of find out why he might have been attracted to this position. But pretty early on, the situation that starts the show is that a young woman is hired and she almost instantly wants to escape, and she's just trying again and again to get out. But once you're in, you're kind of in. Like, they know you can't write a note and hide it to yourself. You can't, there's these weird labyrinths of corridors. There's a super bizarre boss played by Patricia Arquette, as only she can do. And everybody weird shows up in this. John Turturro's in here, Christopher Walken's in here. Like, if someone has played strange roles or has an unusual look, they are appearing in this show. I just can't wait to see who else shows up. And anyway, a guy that was recently either let go or quit or something appears in Mark's personal life and tries to tell him about some ominous things that are happening at this company. So that's what happens right in the first episode or two. All right, so that's what we are watching. Now let's talk about the books. Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. No, I did not really dream that, but that is the infamous first line of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which I have never read until this time. I don't know if you can see this embossed R. The infamous monogram is on the cover of this book. Somehow I got to this point in my life without having read this book and also without hearing very many spoilers about the plot. So the surprises and unusual events in the story were all fresh to me. It wasn't one of those ones where you kind of know the story but you've just never read it. I didn't know this story. All I knew was that it was about a young woman who marries a wealthy man and is his second wife, the first wife having passed away tragically, and then she goes to this big estate that he has, and it's sort of psychologically haunted by this first wife. So I knew that much, and that is all true, and that's in the story, but there's quite a bit more. Now, the interesting thing is, the reason why I decided to go ahead and finally read it at this time is because the library banned book club that I participate in is reading this and discussing it next week. And having read the whole book now, I still don't really understand the banning situation, so I'm going to have to find out when I get to the meeting. The moderator, usually she has researched, why that book has been challenged, and she'll tell us about what she learned about it. But that's the reason for the timing. Stephen, it kind of is a part-time participant in this club, and he gave it a crack, but he only read a few pages, and he's like, this isn't my kind of thing, and he passed it over to me. And even I would say I read a good third of the way into it before I was really hooked. For a long time, just the descriptions and the atmosphere, I was kind of like, okay, are we getting somewhere? And then all of a sudden, we did sort of get somewhere. So it is a slow boiler. You have to be patient, and then it pays off really well for those who just give it time and just let yourself enter the atmosphere. So this young unnamed protagonist is spending a holiday in Monte Carlo as a paid companion of a very insufferable woman who is obsessed with social status and wealth, and she just tries to cozy up to anyone, remotely famous or rich that she recognizes who comes through the places that they visit. And she has employed this young woman to be just a companion for, just whatever she wants. She has grown daughters. I guess they got away from her, so she needs some young woman to bark orders to. So the young lady is doing this embarrassing job with this woman, but she becomes ill, and so she's left to her own devices for a couple of weeks, and she begins going out on rides with the mysterious Maxim de Winter. And Mr. de Winter is in his mid-40s. The younger woman is 21, and he starts going on rides with her. And I guess this is the first time a man has paid her any attention, and so she believes that she has fallen head over heels in love with him. He's moody, he's not very forthcoming with conversation and details. And really, through the whole book, my opinion is that he is the weakest character. We really don't ever get a whole lot more of him. We do, but it doesn't really help. I just don't find him to be super interesting. Like, everybody else in the book is way more interesting than him. But he is the most interesting person to her. She's absolutely taken with him. So when her employer suddenly wants to leave for New York, and she tells Max that she just wants to say goodbye because she's leaving, on a whim, he's like, no, don't go. How about we get married? And she agrees. She kind of misses a whole bunch of really clear red flags because she's very young and naive, and she marries him. This works out okay for a few weeks as they honeymoon and they just go around to different European cities, but then it's time to come home to his mansion, Manderley. And this is when the plot gets interesting. So Manderley, I'm probably telling everyone, a storyline that everybody else already read, but bear with me. So Manderley is one of these beautiful estates. When they get there, she finds out that the wing that he used to live in with his wife has been closed and that they've prepared the other side of the home to live in. She's a little disappointed because she thought she was going to get the ocean view, and instead she gets like the garden view. And even though he tells her, make sure to speak up to the help staff, tell them what you want if you want to do things different, she just doesn't have the courage to do this. She is so out of her element and inexperienced that she thinks that the best approach is to just kind of roll with the program and not make any changes. She defers to the staff, especially the frightening Mrs. Danvers. Now, Mrs. Danvers is absolutely fascinating, totally bizarre, mean, jealous, weird. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but the lingerie scene? What? So she's just absolutely delightfully bizarre and horrible. And other interesting characters come along from the friends and family. I think Frank's pretty interesting, and Beatrice, her sister-in-law. And anyway, she begins little by little to learn a little more about Rebecca, the dead former Mrs. De Winter. But little chinks in the armor start to fall out, and she begins to find out that Rebecca was more complicated. She wasn't just this fabulous, beautiful, suave, in control mistress of the mansion. That there was some other things going on. And gradually the story heats up. Well, it took me a while to get into it, but then it just really hooked me, and I've thought a lot about it after having finished. And I realized I'm really still very mystified by Rebecca herself, because there's more than one version of her presented at different times in the story by different characters. And of course the truth would lie somewhere in the middle or beyond those those portrayals. But I really did enjoy it. Now I'm interested in watching maybe a movie version. So if you have seen the old movie and the more recent movie, which one is the best adaptation? Which, if I'm going to watch Rebecca on TV with somebody who doesn't know the story, what would be our best bet? So let me know in the comments, and let me know if you've read Rebecca and how you feel about it, because I just really enjoyed it. I love the gothic weirdness of it all and the unanswered questions. And anyway, I had a good time with it. Then the book that I'm kind of in the middle of right now is Case Study by Graeme, Macrae, Burnet. And this was longlisted for the Booker Prize, and it was one of the ones when I first saw it on the list, I was very intrigued and I ordered it pretty much right away. And then I don't know why it took me this long to get around to reading it, but it did. And the funny thing is, so I finished Rebecca, and then the next day I start reading Case Study, and right in the first pages, there's all these references to Rebecca. And I thought, what are the odds? Like, if I hadn't read that right now, I guess I would still be okay, but I wouldn't get as much out of it as I have. So not only are some of the situations in Rebecca referred to, the main character actually adopts that name as her fake name in the story. So this is a book, the way it is presented is that Graeme Macrae Burnet came into possession of a set of journals written by a young woman in the 1960s about her visits to this bizarre psychotherapist. This, of course, is a fiction, as is the psychotherapist, but it's part of the structure of the story and how he put this together. So we do have that effect of that he comes in and out sometimes and presents the different parts of the journal, and also his research into this doctor that isn't really true. So that is part of the overall structure, with excerpts from the doctor's own writings, because he published some books, and so there's different pieces like that assembled into the story. But there is a young woman who, like in Rebecca, we don't know what her real first name is, but she adopts the name Rebecca Smith with a Y to start visiting this enigmatic psychotherapist to find out what happened to her sister, who was also seeing this doctor and then committed suicide. She doesn't feel like everything's on the up and up. She thinks that she was somehow encouraged or driven to this by this doctor. So she assumes this fake identity and starts to book her own appointments with him to see what happens in his office. And then it starts to get more strange, because she herself is an odd duck. She doesn't just go in and sign in under a fake name. She starts to assign a whole personality to Rebecca. Things that Rebecca would do or say that she would not say and do. The way that Rebecca would act when approached by a man. The way that Rebecca would look. Like Rebecca's more attractive than she is, even though it's her, with her clothes and her hair. So that starts to get pretty weird. And then even in the sessions, when she starts to tell some of her own personal backstory under Rebecca's guise, we just get the sense that she has a lot of issues of her own. Now, I don't know where we're going with all this, or if we're going to find out what happened to Veronica, or if Rebecca / whoever she really is going to become even more increasingly kind of a little unhinged or unreliable. But I am enjoying it. It's a lot of fun, and I'll be able to report next week on how it turned out and what I thought. So, boom, that's the week that was. What have you been reading and enjoying this week? I think next week will be right on the verge of Christmas at Friday Read. So I have no certain plan of what I'm going to read after case study. I'm just kind of rolling with it right now and taking me where my mood leads me. So we'll just see. Otherwise, I hope that you've had a great week. Let me know what's going on, and I will be back soon. Bye-bye.